Hi everyone, how are you?
And did you see the Sharks farm team?
So, welcome to our first tasting of 2021. As you can all see, your video and audio is enabled, so feel free to mute yourself throughout the tasting.
I don't. This is the first time. For some reason, my phone have to mute them.
And you can turn on and off your camera if you'd like.
Yeah, because it's a
You don't want our camera, right?
You can scroll
I want to
down.
mute us, but I don't see the bar.
Ethel. She's talking and I can't hear her.
You're muted.
Oh, she's muted. Wait, hear me.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm muting everyone and I muted myself. So you have the option to unmute yourself if you'd like, and you also have the option to turn on and off your camera if you'd like. This is going to be a really interactive tasting tonight, so we're really excited that you all are here. All right, make sure you have your 24-piece nuts and caramel collection out in front of you, and we will go ahead and get started in just 1 minute. All right, and while we wait, we would love to know who you're all excited to watch next weekend for the big game. So use the chat box. If you have your gear on, I know some people wore their team's jersey. Let us know who you're excited to watch next weekend. We're excited about it. My name is Lauren. I'll be your host for tonight. And we are so excited for our first tasting of the year. We're kicking it off with our tailgate tasting in honor of the big game next weekend. So like I said, you have the option to unmute yourself throughout the tasting if you have any questions, turn on and off your video. If you don't feel comfortable unmuting yourself, go ahead and just write in the chat box any questions or comments you have. I know Tammy Jo has a few trivia questions tonight. That'll be fun. And we can see kind of what you all are tasting and what you're experiencing with each piece. So we can go ahead and get started on the history portion. So if you're not already familiar with Ethel M chocolates, we were founded by Forrest Mars Sr., who's in that top left photo that you see. Him and his father, Frank Mars, started the Ethel M chocolate, or started the Mars Chocolate Company. And together they made Milky Way, Twix, Snickers, M&M's, Skittles, all the candy that you're familiar with, I'm sure. And then Forrest Mars Sr. retired from that company and moved to Henderson, Nevada for a little bit of a warmer climate and just to relax. During his retirement, he started thinking and really felt like you weren't a true chocolatier until you had your own gourmet boxed chocolate. So that's exactly what he set out to do. And in 1981, he started the Ethel M retail store, which you'll see in that top middle photo, and then the factory is right behind it. And so not only was Forrest passionate about confectionery, but he's also passionate about gardening. So you'll also see that Cactus Garden just outside of the factory. And it started out pretty small and it has grown immensely. We're at 4.4 acres right now. And you'll see the cactus in bloom on the right, and then in our holiday season in the bottom middle photo. So we decorate our cactus garden with over 1 million lights every holiday season. And then right now for Valentine's Day, we also decorate it in all of the pinks, purples, blues. It's really, really beautiful. And we do a Lights of Love. And if you're local to Las Vegas or Nevada, we'd love for you to come out and see us. We are asking for reservations in order to keep a 25% occupancy. And we're asking for a $5 donation to our local food bank 3 Square for admission. So if you want to come out and see us, go on ethelm.com and check that out. Just behind our cactus garden is our solar panel garden, which is that bottom left photo. And our solar panels are over 4 acres of land, and they help to power our factory during its peak production hours. So you can feel really good about the chocolate that you are enjoying tonight. So I will go ahead and introduce our chocolatier for tonight, Tammy Jo. Some of you may have already known her, been familiar with her. She is amazing. She has been with us for about 20 years. She started right when she was able to start working. She started in the factory side, learning about all the machines, how they're made, how all the pieces are made, and has transitioned into retail. So she's training associates and she's continuing her education of chocolate with Mars. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Tammy Jo. And don't forget to unmute yourself.
Hello, hello. All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Tammy Jo, and as Lauren was saying, I have 20 years of experience in eating chocolate, and I take my job very seriously. And I'm going to share with you all of my fun tricks and knowledge I have learned along the way, so you guys will be expert chocolatiers as well by the end of the night. So without further ado, let's get into how we're going to do this with the 4 steps that really enhance the entire experience. If you haven't already, just double check and make sure that you have your boxes open. Open up your box, get something to drink with it. Make sure you have some water or beer of your choice that you paired it with tonight. All right, so experiencing chocolate in a whole new way with all of our senses. How are we going to do this? We're going to start by touch, right? You have to pick it up and touch it, but think about the texture of it. How does it feel? How do they get the design on that piece? How do they get the nuts inside? Really think about all those factors. And then the second step is smell. This is my favorite step because smell enhances everything. Smell is 80% of our taste. So take a deep breath in. Every time you take, right before you take a bite, you're going to smell the chocolate. And what you're trying to do is really smell past the chocolate. We know it's going to be chocolate, but what other flavors do you smell besides that hidden inside? Can you tell what it's going to be? All right, so of course, number 3 is going to be taste. What does it taste like? So you're going to take your bite, you're going to chew a couple times, and then you're going to pause for a moment here. You're going to push it up to the roof of your mouth and really let it melt. And as it's melting, you're thinking about the texture. Is it melting quickly? Is it melting slowly? You also want to think about the flavor note. What was the first flavor note you noticed? And as it's melting and changing, what's the last flavor note that you notice in the piece? And then as you're finishing your chocolate, I'll talk to you about all the fun facts on how each piece is created. If you guys have any questions, feel free to unmute and ask, or type it in the chat box and we'll try to answer as many questions as possible. All right, so now we have a placemat for everyone. And what we're gonna use that for is to narrow down your favorite, because each piece gets better and better as we go. So it's really hard to kind of pinpoint, like, what did I think of that last piece compared to this one? Because this one's the best so far. And then you're gonna try the next one and you're gonna be like, this one's the best so far. So you really wanna kind of like write down notes and take it all in. The flavor wheel here is really fun to use because everybody tastes things different and there's no wrong answers. So some of us might notice fruity. Some of us might notice earthy tones, or maybe we're getting like salt or spice or something. So definitely share that or unmute and let us know what you're tasting, because that's going to make other people that aren't tasting that notice it more. And that's where it's really fun to interact. So definitely let us know and share what you're tasting. Okay, guys? So we're going to dive on into the first piece. We're going to try our milk chocolate macadamia nut. So that's this one right here. So right off the bat, we can tell it's milk chocolate by the way that it looks. It's got those bumps, right? So we definitely see that there's going to be some crunch to it. There's some nuts in there. So let's go ahead and smell deeply. And take another smell. Try to smell past the chocolate. And then go ahead and take a bite. So creamy and smooth, right? So one of the beers that we pair this one with is the Ballast Point, the Calm Before the Storm. So that one's really has like a bright roasted coffee flavor. It is mixed with cold brew, so it's really going to have that like roasted flavor to it, and that's really going to bring out that rich milk chocolate roasted flavor. What I want you guys to do is let me know what category on that flavor wheel would you put this piece in, and let's see what you guys say. Let's see if you guys are right. We have a wheel to share with you. What what would you put it in? Nutty, absolutely. It definitely has a lot of crunchy texture, right? From those macadamia nuts. Macadamia is one of my favorite nuts. It's really, really creamy and rich. Earthy, absolutely. Love it. A little bit of vanilla, absolutely, from that milk chocolate. Definitely. So while you guys are enjoying, I'll talk to you about how this piece is created. So back in the day when we first started making chocolates, we'd have to place the nuts on by hand. To this day, we still do it the same way. We do not have a machine that does it. We put a little dollop of chocolate on the conveyor belt, and then we hand place the nuts onto every single piece to make sure that each macadamia and cluster is going to have at least 4 nuts, and it is jam-packed with a macadamia versus chocolate ratio. So you're always going to get a really delicious, buttery macadamia nut with every bite when you bite into it. After we create all of the bases, which is the little dollop of chocolate, we hand place the nuts on, we let that chill, and then we place it on a conveyor belt, and it's going to go through a machine called the Enrober, where it's going to go through a curtain of chocolate. I kind of call it like a waterfall, and just constant chocolate falling down. There's a little tray catching the chocolate, and it'll go through a little pool, so it gets covered on the bottom again, and then it goes through a cooling tunnel. If you guys have any questions, again, feel free to let me know. But right now we're going to pause for a moment and we're going to dive into some fun facts about cacao. Where does it grow? We're going to start at the very beginning. And I have a trivia question for you guys. So get your fingers ready or go ahead and unmute if you would like to. Looking at the map, you can see the dark shaded areas where cacao trees can grow, only 20 degrees north and south of the equator. But what state is in that area that could grow cacao trees? Hawaii. Yes, absolutely. Will, you are correct. Very good. That is awesome. Yes, Hawaii, Hawaii. And that is my dream. That's on my bucket list. I want to go to Hawaii and hug a cacao tree. I think that'd be awesome. So the reason why cacao trees can only grow in this area is because they have to have high humidity, lots of heat for the sun, lots of moisture, lots of rain. And if we go to the next slide, you'll see how big the trees are. They don't grow very tall. They actually grow pretty short, around 7 to 9 feet tall, and they are underneath the canopy. So let's talk about how the pods grow on the tree. I have a kind of rubber display here of what the pod looks like. And we'll tell you a whole bunch of fun facts about this. So cacao trees roughly are like the size of a small football. And when the bloom on the tree, the blooms cover the entire tree. It can grow on the bottom of the tree all the way up into the branches. And what's really cool is the only bug that can pollinate the tree is a midge because it's small enough to get down inside the flowers. After pollination, it takes 5 to 8 months to grow a full-size pod. Fun fact, each pod has about 25 to 60 beans. Can you guys tell me how many pods you think it would take to make 1 pound of chocolate? 1 pound. Again, there's 25 to 60 beans in each pod. How many pods would it take to make 1 pound of chocolate? Okay, we've got 500, 500. Wow, okay. Oh, someone said 10. I see someone said 10. That is correct. 10 pods. 10 pods to make 1 pound of chocolate. Those are some awesome guesses. Thank you guys so much for joining in. So yeah, it takes 10 pods to make 1 pound of chocolate. Pretty cool, right? So once they're ready to go and they're ready to harvest, we're gonna cut them off the tree with machetes. We crack it open and you can see all that slimy goo on those beans. That is the pulp, and it's very important during the fermentation process. We're gonna keep that on there. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put it in a big heap in a box or maybe just on some banana leaves, and it's gonna sit there for about 5 days. And they rotate it every now and then, but mostly it just sits in the sun and bakes and breaks down the sugar from that pulp, and that helps change the acidicness of the bean and prepares it for making chocolate. The last stage is the sun drying table. So this stage is a little bit different. They want to dry it out. So they're actually going to spread it out in a thinner layer on a bamboo table so it can aerate and constantly rotate it to dry it out, to get rid of all the excess moisture in the bean. Enough talking about beans. Let's eat some more chocolate. We're going to dive on into our next piece. So go ahead, if you haven't already, cleanse your palate. I'm going to do that really quick. Alrighty, up next is our dark chocolate sea salt caramel. So this one we're going to try in 2 different bites. Make sure you take at least 2 to 3 bites of each piece. And with this one, we're going to eat it salt up, but the really cool trick is on your second bite, flip it upside down. If you flip it upside down, it's going to completely change how it tastes because it's going to land on your palate in a different way. So let's go ahead and try it. Remember to smell the chocolate first. Really smell past that caramel. What else do you smell? Can you smell the salt? And then go ahead and take a bite and let us know what you liked better, salt up or salt down. Definitely caramel, right? This one's got a little bit different of a flavor. You might notice the chocolate's melting a little bit slower because it is a darker chocolate. Definitely caramel, right? Let us know what those flavor notes are. What category would you guys put it into? My senses are picking up definitely salty, definitely goes into spices. It has a little bit of kind of like butterscotch flavor to me, so maybe sweet aromatics. I don't know, what do you guys think? Milk, saltiness, absolutely. All right, well, let's see what category is lighted up. We've got espresso. I definitely tasted that. What about you guys? Somebody likes salt down? I'm a salt down fan too. My favorite way to eat it is definitely salt down. I think it really enhances the caramel when all the salt just hits your tongue and it just kind of melts everything and enhances all those flavors. So this one's gonna go really well with a Belgian style ale, and that's really gonna bring out that richness in the dark chocolate, and that caramel absolutely is going to bring out that buttery flavor too. All righty. Looks like we're getting a lot of votes for salt down. That's awesome. Very cool. So what you guys are enjoying, I'll talk to you about how this piece was created. All right, so how do we make the caramel? We start off by melting all the ingredients in a copper kettle gas heater. And we use copper because it holds a truer temperature and it's going to disperse it more evenly. So from there, we're going to pour it onto our cooling tables. It kind of looks like they're pouring like liquid copper, right? It's so good, mouth-watering in the photo. I love that picture. It's so delicious. I just wish I could swim in it. So they pour it onto a regulated temperature table, which means we actually recycle the water and we pump the water through and control the temperature so they can control it and make it cool really fast or really slow depending on how they cool it. So when they spread out the caramel, they're going to let that set up completely and then they cut it into slabs and they're going to put it through a machine that's going to score it both directions for us. And that's going to give perfect little squares. And then we're going to break those apart, put them on the conveyor belt, and they're going to go through a machine called the Enrobing Machine. And I mentioned this one before, but basically there's this big trough full of chocolate. It's constantly flowing, this thick curtain of chocolate. They're going to go through and get covered. And right after they come out of that curtain of chocolate, they're going to get pinched with salt. I almost said hand person. A person is pinching the salt on by hand. So as you can see in the photo there, to this day, we still do a lot of hands-on involvement. We put the nuts on the clusters by hand. We put a pinch of salt onto every piece by hand. And fun fact, if you looked closely at the salt, you might have noticed it kind of has a grayish tint. The reason for that is because of where it is sourced, which is in Brittany, France. It crystallizes on a gray clay, and that gives it a grayish tint, which is why we call it the French gray sea salt. All righty, so let's go ahead and cleanse our palates and get ready for the next one. All right, this one has a lot going on texture wise, you can see all of those little ridges. There's just little bumps all over this piece, right? This one is our milk chocolate pecan caramel. Definitely has a really interesting shape to it. Before you take a bite, if you've already taken a bite, that's okay. But before you take a bite on this one, we're gonna do something a little bit different. Just like with the sea salt, we kind of tried it in 2 different ways. We're gonna do the same thing with this one. This one is also a layered piece. So if you want to flip this one upside down on your second bite, you can do that and it might change the way it tastes. But what we're gonna do different with this one is we're gonna plug our nose. That's right, you heard me. We're gonna plug our nose like as if we're going underwater for the very first time. So let's smell the chocolate. Really smell past the chocolate. What else do you smell? And then go ahead and hold your nose shut and then take a bite. And hold it for as long as you can. And of course, release before you pass out. All right, what flavor did you guys notice first? Did you notice chocolate, caramel, pecans? This one has a lot of different flavors going on. It definitely goes into a lot of different categories on that flavor wheel. So what flavors did you guys notice? Caramel, bitter pecans. Right, absolutely. Anybody get any earthy tones with this one? I always get a strong earthy tone with this one. Did anybody taste any walnut? Only pecan? Sometimes it can taste like walnut for me. And okay, cool, somebody else agrees. Sometimes it does taste like walnut to me because the sweetness of the caramel kind of takes away that bitterness from the nut. So you only notice, like it takes away the sweetness. So you only notice that bitter note it has, and it just kind of brings out like a walnut flavor. I know it doesn't have walnuts, but sometimes that's what they taste like to me. Alrighty, so what did you guys think of the nose trick? Did you like it? What did you taste when your nose was plugged? So it goes into a lot of different categories, right? It goes into roasted, more toasted flavor there because of the toasted California pecans. Definitely goes into nutty and sweet aromatics. I definitely tasted butterscotch too. Absolutely. All right, so while you guys are enjoying. Oh, okay. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, it just depends on how it lands on your palate. But sometimes you can't taste anything when your nose is plugged, and then all of a sudden, all the flavor comes rushing at you. Cool, you guys tasted caramel more? There was a question there, but I didn't catch it in time. Let me see if I can open my chat box so I can go back. If you want to unmute and ask the question again, I can't find it in the comments. They're going by quick. It does have a rush of flavor, absolutely. So I'll talk to you a little bit about how this one's created, and if you want to, you can ask any questions. So with this piece, it's really cool how they make it. They actually pour the caramel onto the nuts, because with the macadamia nut, we poured the chocolate down and then we put the nuts on top. But with this one, we put the nuts down first and then pour the caramel on top. So how that works is they prepare the entire conveyor belt with a bed of crushed almonds, and then they're going to prepare the caramel. So they're going to heat up the caramel, and they heat it in a copper kettle gas heater. They melt all the ingredients down, and then they're going to pour it into a trough. So the trough is actually going to sit over the conveyor belt, and it drops a bed of caramel on top of the pecans, and then they let it set up. Now what happens is all the caramel that lands on the pecans, when you pull it apart, after it sets up, it's only going to grab certain clusters of nuts, and they just kind of like pull it apart and size the pieces. And then from there, they're going to go into the enrobing machine and get covered on all sides. So with this piece, after they go through like an enrober of caramel, they're going to go through the enrober of milk chocolate and get covered and smothered. And then it's going to go through a cooling tunnel where they can then hand pack it. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and take a time out and dive into some more fun facts about the cacao beans. We last left our beans soaking up the sun, getting a nice golden suntan. So now let's talk about sorting. What do we mean by sorting? So let's show you what the beans look like. I have a display right here of what the beans actually look like after they're dried. You can see that some of them right here, this one right here, it's got like a shell on it, but it has like a shiny spot. And I have one that I'm going to show you up close. So right here, you can see it has kind of like a shell on it, right? But it has a shininess underneath. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna break this off and the bean comes right out. Trying not to smash it. They're very delicate. So if you press too hard, the bean will actually smash. All right, so I got most of it off. So this is what it looks like underneath that shell. See how shiny it is compared to the shell there? The beans are shiny because beans are 50% cocoa butter and 50% cocoa solid. And yes, the same kind of cocoa butter, but that is used in lotion. So chocolate is good for you inside and out. Did I mention chocolate was a fruit? I don't think I did. Chocolate is a fruit. The pod is considered the fruit of the tree. So that's my #1 favorite fun fact, because then you can twist that and say that chocolate is a fruit and it's good for you. Alrighty, so let's talk about the inside of that bean. As you can see in the photo there that we have on display, we use the sorting board to put the beans in, we shut it, and we slice through them all at once so that we can see what's inside. And what we're looking for is that dark brown color. We don't want anything pink or fleshy because that is not perfectly fermented. If it's a dark brown bean, that means it's perfectly fermented, and that is going to give a high quality chocolate. We only source our beans from Brazil, Indonesia, and West Africa. And we only source the beans that are dark brown inside because that's going to give the highest quality chocolate for our brand. The other beans are able to be used for chocolate. We just don't source them for our brand. Once we select all of our beans, we're going to ship them to Elizabethtown, Pennsylvania, and then, no, not Hawaii. I don't think it's a big enough farm there to source from, but yeah, we get them from Brazil, Indonesia, and West Africa. So from there, we're going to send them to Elizabethtown, and that's the facility that roasts all the beans and grind them into a chocolate liqueur. Now, I have actually gotten to try chocolate liqueur, and I tried one tiny little drop. Oh, by the way, this is what nibs look like. I forgot to mention that. This is basically chopped bean. So if you've ever heard of chocolate covered nibs or just nibs in general, it's basically the chopped bean. They're very bitter, absolutely. You can eat these. They're going to taste kind of almost like coffee beans. Like if you've ever had a coffee bean, it's similar to that, but it has more like a chocolate, it's chocolate flavored. And so it's really, really bitter. I tried one drop of this and it basically tasted like tobacco, like I had put in a spoon of coffee grounds in my mouth that had tobacco and leather in it. That's the best way I can describe it. It's definitely horrible, but you should definitely try it at least once because it's very interesting. You could definitely tell that it would be chocolate once they blended it in with sugar and cream and all that delicious stuff that we put into it. So from there, we separate cocoa butter and cocoa solids, and then we reblend it into milk, dark and white, to create the chocolates. Once they are ready, they're going to ship to us, and then we can enrobe them and mold them depending on how we're making our chocolate. And of course, we have to temper it too. So this is a beautiful picture of the enrobing machine that we've been talking about. This is how we cover all of our macadamians, our toffees, our caramels. So no worries. I know you're probably thinking, what's happening to the chocolate? It's falling down. Where is it going? Do you waste it? No, it's not wasted. What happens is the tank underneath is actually catching the chocolate. There's also a tray there, and it's going to create a little pool. So when they go through, they kind of swim through the chocolate. They go through the waterfall of chocolate, and then all the chocolate falls back down into the tank and it gets pumped back up into that trough. So nothing is ever wasted. From there, they're then going to go through a cooling tunnel, or some of our pieces might get a drizzle design. All righty, let's go ahead and dive on in. Timeout is over. We're going to jump back into the game and eat some more chocolate. And if you guys are drinking any of the beers on our pairing list, please let us know like which ones you decided to pair it with, or if you're drinking it with wine, let us know what you're drinking with it. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to let me know. All right, up next we have the almond butter crisp. Hazy IPA. Oh, nice. Very nice. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that you don't have this one in your box. So this is the, okay, good, you found it, awesome. Yeah, it's covered in foil, so we're gonna open that one up. And this one's got those little crummy pieces. I'm not saying it's crummy. It has crumbs. And I always kind of am one of those people that love the crumbs of the chip bag at the bottom because they have the most flavor. So I really feel like this piece kind of like goes hand in hand with that, because all of that texture, right? There's so much texture on the piece and it's really good. So there's a couple reasons why we're foiling it, but we'll get back to that in just a second. Gun rock. So what do you guys smell? I always smell strong earthy tones. So fun fact, the almonds were paired in 2 different ways on this piece. Cab's gonna have kind of like a dryness, and so that is gonna be complemented by all the roasted flavor in the nuts. And so that's really gonna go really well with a cab. All right, let's go ahead and take a bite. I think a little bit of the salt from my salted caramel jumped onto that one. So good. Oh, this one has so much texture going on, right? It's crunchy, it's buttery. It kind of melts in your mouth, even though it's crunchy toffee. Smells like dried coconut. I totally can smell that now. I never noticed that before. Thanks. That's so cool. And I love coconut. Coconut's one of my favorite pieces, right? It's very buttery. It's so intense and buttery. I love this piece. It's so good. It's got butter. It's got like all the little like the little texture of little crushed almonds. All right, so let's talk about how it's created. So this piece, we use a copper kettle gas heater, and the copper foil is kind of a nod to that. We use copper because it's going to hold a truer temperature. So we're going to heat it up to about 300 degrees. Now when we're making caramel, we heat up to about 239 degrees, but with the toffee, you've got to heat up a little bit more, get all that butter and sugar crystallizing. So we're going to heat up to 300 degrees, and then we're going to pour it onto our cooling table. Now with the caramel, we were able to wait till it was completely cool and then cut it. But with the toffee, we're not able to do that. We have to cut it right in the middle, right when it starts getting completely like almost solid, but it's still kind of flexible and melted. So the chocolatiers will go to the corner of the table, they kind of lift it up. If it can bend up, then that is how they can tell it's ready to be cut. So then they're going to take the rolling pins, the blades on them, and they're going to score it both directions. And the rolling pins have like a weight to them, and they have little blades on them, so they can decide what the size is going to be based on how close together or far apart those blades are. So when they score it both directions, they let that completely chill, and then it has a nice grid. And as it cools, when we go back, when it's solid, we can break it apart, and it's going to have a nice perfect break because we had pre-scored it. Once they break it all up by hand, they're going to place it on the enrober, and it's going to go through the carton of chocolate. But how do we get the nuts on the outside? Well, they have a whole tray full of crushed raw almonds. And that's what gives that strong earthy tone, is the raw almonds. We foil it because we don't want those almonds to oxidize and start going bad. So we foil it to keep it nice and fresh, and also keeps all that flavor on there too, so that those little pieces don't fall off and get onto something that doesn't have almonds in it. So once they come through that curtain of chocolate, there's the conveyor belt, and it just stops. And we have someone standing at the end. They have a big cookie sheet tray full of the bed of crushed almonds, and they catch all the pieces coming off the conveyor belt, and then they hand toss it. So each piece is hand tossed, and then they set that tray on a cooling rack to cool. They grab the next tray that's prepared, catch the next batch, and then hand toss it. And that's how this piece is created. And then it will go through a cooler and then get foiled. It is very similar to the almond roca, like texture wise and stuff like that. Yeah. It's similar to a pizza cutter, exactly, but it's like a whole bunch together. So it's like a big metal rolling pin. It has like round blades on it, just like a pizza cutter. And so they cut it all at once. Absolutely. All right, cool. So, you guys, we're down to our last one. Are you ready for the next one? This one is definitely packed full, a lot of flavor. And for some reason, this one always reminds me of Christmas. All right, let's take a deep breath in and smell. So can anyone smell the nuts? Can you actually smell the nuts, or do you just smell maple? Right, definitely strong flavor notes of maple. We should try the nose trick on this one. If you didn't try that yet, let's try it again on this one. I noticed more cream that time. It's very creamy. I didn't get a piece of the walnut in my bite that time. Take another bite. So when you rub the bottom of the chocolate, like if you're having a hard time smelling it, when you rub the bottom and smell it again, it kind of opens up the aroma and you're able to smell it a little bit better. Definitely taste that walnut flavor too, right? So this one's going to go really well with a classic Scotch ale, and they brew that with a maple syrup, and it's aged in the bourbon. This one is my favorite to pair with this piece because it's going to really bring out the maple flavor. So that one would be my suggestion. Like out of the pairings, I would really like that one. So let's see, what categories did we put it into? Definitely nutty, got that walnut in there. It definitely has that earthy tone, right? It goes into sweet aromatics too. And definitely dairy. I definitely got like a really creamy, like cooked milk flavor from it as well. Absolutely. This one is so good. Brown sugar, absolutely. I totally taste brown sugar now. That's so funny. Like, see how like when someone else mentions something that you didn't notice, like all of a sudden that's what it tastes like. So cool. All right, so while you guys are enjoying, I'll talk to you about how this piece was created. So to get that delicious buttery, fudgy texture, we heat up the ingredients in a steam kettle so we don't scorch it. We're gonna melt down all the ingredients and then we're gonna pour it into a cream beater. We have a specially designed machine called the cream beater that's really going to mix the buttercreams in the way that Ethel did in her kitchen when she first started creating her buttercreams in 1911. So as they mix in, they pour in the buttercream and they let that set up for a bit. They're cooling it down. So they heat it up to about 208 degrees, but then they have to cool it down, and they're gonna cool it down to get it nice, thick, and fudgy. as it's cooling, this round mixer is going to mix it, and it mixes very slowly. It doesn't mix fast, it mixes very slowly. And the way the blades scrape the round mixer, it kind of creates this folding motion, and it kind of folds in on itself. And that's how it gets that really thick fudgy texture, because as we're mixing it, it's a double boiler, so we're also cooling it down as it's being mixed, and that's how it gets that thick fudgy texture. Then they're going to add in the walnuts, and then from there they're going to go through an extruder, and this one we have to shape. So we put it into this machine called the extruder that's going to push the buttercream through these tubes, making perfect round mounds of the maple walnut. And then from there it goes through the cooling tunnel, sorry, said it wrong. It's going to go through the curtain of chocolate, and then it's going to go through a cooling tunnel. But you might have noticed on your piece there's some little bumpy ridges. How did those get on there, right? So that's a stribbon designer. Each piece has its own unique design, and this one is going to have a little drizzle on the top of it, and it's the stribbon maker. So when it goes through, based on how fast the conveyor belt is running underneath and what pattern it's shaking in, will determine how it lands on the chocolate. So it might be moving very fast, or it might be moving very slow, or maybe in a circular motion. And they can tweak, just the slightest tweak of how it moves will determine how it lands on the chocolate, giving it a perfect little design. Alrighty, so I'd like to know what your guys' #1 favorite piece was that we've had so far.
Feel free to unmute if you want, or type it in the chat box, as well as any questions you may have. If you have any questions about the tasting in general or any of the pieces, definitely leave that in the chat box as well, and we can pick Tammy Jo's brain.
So are the designs specific to the chocolate? Yes. So each piece is going to have its own unique drizzle. So with the maple one, this one's milk chocolate, but it has a dark chocolate drizzle, and that one has straight lines. We do have another raspberry satin cream in milk chocolate with dark drizzle, but if you had them next to each other, you would definitely know the difference, because the raspberry has an interlaced design, whereas this one's just like back and forth. Okay, we got sea salt caramel, macadamia nuts.
Awesome, a lot of caramel.
Love the
Everyone
salted
loves
caramel, right? A lot of people like the salted caramel.
That's awesome. Let's see.
How do you handle quality control?
Yeah, we have a team. We have a team that is basically monitors the factory 24/7. There's spot checks, and there's a lot of checks and balances to be sure that the quality is exactly what Forrest and his mother started with, and it's on par with what we're wanting. Unless, do you have anything else to add to that, Tammy Jo? I know you know as well.
No, that's pretty much it. Yeah, it goes through like 5 different like quality checks before it even gets to our store. One of them is tasting, and no, I don't know how you can get that job. This is the closest I've gotten to it.
Probably a long list.
It is. It's a long list of people that want that particular job.
All right. Well, if you have any other questions, keep typing them in. We do just want to say thank you so much for joining us for our tasting tonight, our first one of the year. So please use our code virtual at checkout. It is good until the week before Valentine's Day. And we are actually having another tasting for Valentine's Day. We're hosting it that whole weekend. So we have 3 different sessions just to kind of best fit your schedule. And then also you can always watch the recording after the fact if you'd like, but you can get 15% off that tasting kit as well, and anything else you like on ethelm.com, and use the code virtual at checkout. Tammy Jo can go over any of the other pieces that you have. If you want to go over the pieces they didn't try. So we have the creamy caramel. Can you go over them really quick, Tammy Jo, and just kind of know which ones we didn't try?
So the ones that we didn't try today that are in your box is the creamy caramel and the dark chocolate macadamia nut. We also have an almond cluster. That one's really good. It's milk chocolate with some earthy tones. You get a woody flavor from that one because of the almonds. And then the creamy caramel dark chocolate, that's one of my favorites too. It has a really rich buttery caramel flavor, and it just kind of melts in your mouth. It's really, really creamy.
Yeah, so we thought this would be fun I know someone said all the extra chocolates. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, it's okay.
I know you're gonna have a lot of extras, so feel free to finish some throughout the weekend, save some for next weekend if you're gonna watch the big game. Hopefully it'll hold you over. I know I can't keep a box of chocolate around me for that long, but kudos to you if you can.
There is going to be a Valentine's Day tasting, yes.
And it will be Tammy Jo hosting one and then Mark hosting one. He'll host two actually. So you can do both of them. And Emma, thanks so much for joining us. Happy to have our other associates join us out here. And Tammy Jo, what about the pieces with the Ethel N written on top?
That one is the creamy caramel. So it's really awesome how they create that. That is a cocoa butter coloring. Some of our pieces are even completely coated in different colors. And so what's really cool about that piece is that it's totally edible. It doesn't taste different at all. And it's so cute. I absolutely love it. I'm going to zoom back in on that one. It is so cute. I love it. And we actually use that. It's like a, how do you describe it? It's like a transfer sheet. It's like a little plastic sheet, and they have a very special mold that has two parts. One is going to have the cavity shape of the mold. The other one's going to be flat, and they connect with magnets. So what they do is they place the little sheet in between the magnets, and it snaps together and holds tight. And then they can go through the one-shot depositor that does the filling and the chocolate shell all in once. And then as it cools, they have to twist the mold to open it up, like open them up after they're cooled, and then it just peels right off, and then the design is on the chocolate. It's really, really cool.
Awesome. Any more questions? We're so happy you all enjoyed the tasting. And we're going to have more wine pairings as well for a Valentine's tasting coming up. So if you're a wine drinker, that'll be great. Tom asked if there's new pieces created regularly. Do you want to answer that one, Tammy Jo?
Yeah, we're always trying to move forward and definitely go with the times, like look at our brand and see, you know, what is happening, what do we need to add. A lot of people back in the day would always ask, oh, you have cactuses. Why don't you have a chocolate with cactus? Well, we do have a chocolate cactus piece now. It's called the prickly pear, where we use the fruit of the cactus in the chocolate. And we have that because so many of you guys were asking about it and wondering why. So we created it. We found a way to make that happen. So they're always trying to find new things to add to our brand. And that's just one of the many pieces that Mark Mackey has added to our brand that is absolutely delicious. Another piece he's added, which is I think his favorite, is the Remy Martin XO Cognac Truffle.
Yep.
So I don't know the details on how long, but I think it may be about a year it takes him to finalize everything and get the ingredients and make the design. And how is he going to is it going to be a molded piece? Is it enrobed? How is he going to design the piece? And that one's really delicate. It actually is hand painted. So they hand paint each cavity on the mold for the Remy Martin, and it takes like 2 days to make that piece. So there's a lot of different hands-on involvement in deciding on like what's it going to look like and all those details. So it takes a really long time to finalize that, but he has created a lot of new pieces since he's been here.
Yeah. Most recently, I think for holiday is our fudge piece as well.
Yes, we just recently got fudge in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then someone asked if we ever are going to do a liquor-filled chocolate tasting. If you've had our liqueur pieces before, you'll know they are very strong. They really pack a punch. So we are going to start incorporating those into some tastings. We have some things for St. Patrick's Day in the works right now, which will be really fun. Hopefully incorporating some liqueur pieces and stuff like that. And then just throughout this year, we will definitely incorporate more. That way you get a full taste of our whole collection. Any other questions at all? All right, well, thank you so much to everyone. I'll show that discount code again, just in case you missed it. Again, we have a tasting coming up on Valentine's Day weekend that's already on sale now if you want to get that. And then there's going to be more throughout the year. We're going to aim to do about one a month. So you'll never have to go too long without a virtual chocolate tasting. Thank you all so much. Have a great night.